Motivational interviewing and an overview of using the implementation feedback planning form. Let's start with a brief review of what motivational interviewing is about. So again, this might be super repetitive for some folks who attended the gathering, and also really great to be repetitive because it's super easy to forget certain practices and techniques of motivational interviewing without it being refreshed. So let's talk about the theory. The theory is pretty much saying that the way we interact with our teachers really impacts their language and their behavior. So there's two ways of really interacting. As the partner, you can really push for change. You could say, PAX is great, you got to do it, right? And then you could see your teachers really resist that and say, I don't need it. My behavior management's great. I've been a teacher for many years. It's a waste of time, all the things of their resistance. And then change is really unlikely to happen because you're just saying, you got to try it. It's great. And there's nothing that really gets their buy-in. The other way to do it is to really, as the partner, have a conversation that elicits change talk in that teacher. So you're really asking questions and you're paying attention, you're switching the little switch in your brain to listen out for what they might be saying that says something really needs to change and I need a way for this to be better in their classroom or virtual classroom or interactions with parents or teacher or their students in any way. If you really catch on to that change talk, then change is much more likely because it's coming from the teacher. It's much more likely that it will impact their behavior. So as with anything, there's negative practices and positive practices. Negative practices of interviewing would include, ordering and directing and commanding, warning and threatening, giving advice, persuading with logic, arguing or lecturing, disagreeing, judging, criticizing, blaming, interpreting or analyzing, questioning or probing, withdrawing, distracting, humoring, or changing subject. Some of these might work for your teachers, depending on who your teachers are. They might really be into the questioning and probing. They might be really into getting your advice. But again, the change is not coming from them. It's coming from you. You're disseminating information. You're hoping they grab onto it. The positive practice is really about asking some good questions and listening, deep, deep listening. So if you get nothing else, get this part out of this presentation. What questions could you ask that really elicit that change talk, that really bring in the teacher's ideas and thoughts and feelings about what's happening? So you could ask questions like, why would you want to make this change? If you decide to make this change, how might you go about it in order to succeed? What are the 3 best reasons for you to do it? And how important would you say it is for you to make this change on a scale of 0 to 10? There's a lot of motivational interviewing skills in those questions. So there's 2 main ideas of motivational interviewing. One is the spirit of MI, which says that if the teacher really comes to genuinely believe you accept and understand them, you have created a setting for them to move in a positive direction. I cannot say this enough. It is so important that you meet your teachers in this way and they really feel that genuine aspect so that you can move them towards what they're wanting to change. And then the second main idea is really the change talk piece, which is that any teacher's speech that favors movement toward a particular goal, it's really paying attention to what they want that would be different than what they are experiencing now that's not working. And if you really learn to hear that change talk, it really becomes the guide to doing your motivational interviewing. So the 4 main motivational interviewing strategies that we'll talk about today are ORS, darn C to evoke change talk, responding to change talk, and then responding to resistance. Some of you might remember these from the the gathering, and some of you, this might be brand new too, so we'll get into that. So ORS is about open-ended questions, affirmations, reflections, and summaries. And these acronyms are really meant to help you remember these steps. So open-ended questions are questions that can't be answered with a single word, like yes or no, maybe, sometimes. Affirmations are really about being specific and genuine and affirming what that teacher is saying. Reflections, paraphrasing while giving special attention to feelings, which may be implied. And then summarizing is about 2 to 3 sentences to draw connections. And usually summarizing really brings about the sustained talk with the change talk. So what is keeping the teacher stuck in a certain habit or pattern, yet you hear them really wanting to change it, and you're wanting to really talk about both sides. Then there's the questions that evoke change talk, the darn C. And that stands for desire, ability, reasons, need for change, concern, and or commitment. So desire is really about asking, can you tell me something that you really want to be different? Ability is really checking in on what they are able to do. What makes you think you could do this change? How would you like things to be different is really gathering up the reason for why things need to be different. And the need for change or disadvantage of the status quo, what makes you think you may need to make this change? Concern is about what really worries you about blank. And then commitment is what are you willing to do here or in the near future? Responding to change talk is very close to ORS. You're elaborating on the change talk. So if you're hearing that there's a change and there's a desire for change, you're wanting to ask questions to have them really elaborate on that. And then here's where the rest of the ORS stuff comes in. You're affirming that change talk, you're reflecting that change talk, and then you're summarizing that change talk. And then there's responding to resistance, which has a whole lot of bits and pieces to it. There's the simple reflection that contains little to no additional content. You're basically hearing what the teacher's saying and you're reflecting it back in pretty much the same exact words. Amplified reflection reflects the teacher's content with some intensity expressed, like, whoa, that's really tough. And then reflecting back what's really tough. Double-sided reflection, again, similar to that summarizing piece, your reflection includes both the sustain and change talk. What's keeping them in this pattern? What do they really want to change? And naming both. Shifting the focus is about redirecting attention and discussion to less contentious topics. I think this is a really big and important one when it comes to teachers. Some of their resistance can come from factors that are outside of your or their control. An example that comes to me about the shifting focus piece is that I think we were at a booster or next steps at a school somewhere in the center of the state, I think, and somebody kept saying, I can't do Toodles. I only have a certain number of copies I can make on the copy machine. Administration won't let me make more copies, so Toodles can't be done. And on she went about how hard it is to do Toodles because the copy machine has limits. And what we're wanting is to shift the focus back to Toodles. And you can simply use a piece of paper. There's lots of different ways to do that. Reframing invites the teacher to consider a different interpretation. Agreeing with a twist puts a lot of these pieces together, reflection, affirmation, and followed by a reframe. Emphasizing personal choice. This also feels super important. Teachers all have their classroom and it's in their little world and they create that kind of island world. And so really giving them the personal choice and control that they have, acknowledging that they have choice and self-determination. So letting that autonomy be really important. And then coming alongside, accepting and reflecting themes of resistance. So if you're hearing your teachers resist, really understanding what that resistance is about, and really sitting with them in that and seeing, oh, I really get that resistance. I really know what that's like. So this helps them feel like you're on their side more than anything else. So I'm going to pause here and check in, see if there's any questions or comments at this point before I move forward into the implementation planning feedback interview. I don't know if there's anything in the chat.
Nope, you're good in the chat.
Okay, cool. All right. So I'm gonna actually tap out of the PowerPoint to make sure that you've all have seen, oops. No. Okay, hopefully you've all seen this sheet. Has everyone seen this sheet so far? I know that, great, awesome. I'm seeing thumbs up, I'm seeing head nods, awesome. So I believe Kenzie sent this out in a Word document. I think it's also in our PAX Partner Materials folder if you have access to that. And it was in a newsletter as well. The newsletter has the link in which you will submit this information, but we wanted to give you this hard copy look at what you're asking, as well as give you an opportunity to have something to write on in this style. So depending on what you want to do, you can be interviewing your teacher and have your computer open and just be typing right into the link. Or you can have this piece of paper, do the interview while writing shorthand, and then be able to go to the link and type them all in at one time. Whatever your preference is, we give you choice and self-determination. So obviously the beginning part is all that identifying information, district, school, who you are, what's the name of the teacher you're interviewing, and their grade or position. And so there's about 5 questions on the side, 4 to 5 really, because 5 is a pretty optional question. And then there's these 3 venues in which you can answer that question from. So the PAC strategy to be introduced is a pretty interesting one. We'll see what teachers come up with, but basically it's a kernel. You know, which kernel or cue is your teacher willing to do with their parents, or virtually, or distance learning, depending on the variations of how learning is happening right now. And then what is your teacher willing to do upon returning to school? So they might say, you know, I want to do vision with my parents. I want to do PAX leader teaching virtually. And when I return to school, I'm really going to be focusing on Granny's Wacky Prizes. So they can have different answers. They can have the same answers. And then they go into the next question. Okay, what are the ways this strategy will really benefit my students? And this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. Like what are those teachers coming up with about how this will benefit them and their students? What are the barriers they see as possible obstacles to doing this strategy? And what are the ways in which they'll use the strategy immediately? Any questions on the sheet so far? Cool. Back to the PowerPoint. Here we go. Okay, so what we're going to do now is really look at motivational interviewing through this worksheet. And here's where it could get a little bit repetitive, and I hope you hang in there with me. You know, we have a trainer that talks about how you need to go through something 66 times to really make it a habit. We'll be going through it about 4 or 5 times here. So maybe it'll be a habit. See how it goes. And yeah, if you have any questions during this, please feel free to ask at any point. So the first question is that PAC strategy to be introduced, both in all these venues, virtually, with parents, and returning to the classroom. And we were just brainstorming about what are some potential responses that teachers might give us. And one we came up with is, I'm only virtually with my students for a short period of time. PAX is not a priority during that time. Or there's too much going on for parents right now. There is no way I can add packs to their plates. Or no strategies will work for my classroom. Are there any other thoughts about what some teachers might say right now if you're doing this question with them? Obviously, you guys know your teachers better than we do.
For us, I think a lot of it is we're not doing anything virtually right now. We're looking into doing that and possibly having a summer school, but we don't have the internet capability at this point. So our kids are doing home packets, and everything I'm doing is sending it by paper. The teachers are in contact, with the parents and the students, but hopefully if we can get the summer school going, and we're trying to get Chromebooks and get internet access to the kids here in the Pueblo, because there's families that just don't have it. So if that all works out, then we would go to virtual classrooms, and we're looking into going to Google Classrooms.
Nice.
But right now, I mean, it's just paper. And until we get to that point, we can't really do anything too much virtually. And I mean, I know that the parents are like these questions, answers, they're just so busy and overwhelmed as it is. So introducing virtually, things to the parents, that's even there's going to be a time frame to work with them, just how it's going to look like when we start school, and how is that going to look like. So there's a lot of those kind of obstacles with us right now.
Yeah. Thanks, Marita. That's a really good point. I think there's a lot of folks that are doing packets, and so we said virtually, but what we really mean is distance learning, and I should probably really change that. So what could be done in terms of packets and things being sent home, however that might be happening right now, for learning to continue, and I really, yeah.
I already did my interviews, and these were the responses I got. At this point, they want us to focus on, the curriculum. We're like me. I'm not face to face with my kids. I do a video every morning, and mostly since they're so small, the communication's coming between me and their parents. And then the same issues with some of the other classes, and not all our kids have internet connectivity. A lot of the teachers aren't seeing parents pushing their kids to get online, so that's another struggle we're getting. Some of the classes don't even have half their kids on, because especially in the older grades, either the kids don't want to get on, or other issues, connectivity. So I did these interviews as best as I could under the circumstances. So I got my whole staff. It even took me a while to get the other surveys done with them. It's just pulling teeth at this point.
Yeah, I totally hear you, Jacqueline. It's totally a challenge.
Just to go with what Jacqueline said, I feel sort of similar, like when I talk to the teachers that work with me, it seems like they're listening, and they'll sort of humor me and kind of like, oh, okay, that's what you're doing with PACS, or but I feel like the enthusiasm, it just isn't there. And it's not just around PACS, but I just find even for our staff meetings, like Felicia really tries to get everybody excited, and what's one thing happening really great in your class, and it was there maybe the first week or two of distance learning, and now it just feels like everybody is really overwhelmed. So adding something else, it's kind of like they'll hear you out, but to actually do it is another thing. I think one person or two people have messaged me back that they did the PAC surveys, and I also know like a lot of us have young kids at home and things like that. So I think people are just overwhelmed, and it's hard to get that excitement or positive feeling about everything.
Mhm.
going, but you kind of know that our families need it more now than ever, you know?
Right.
So yeah, just trying to think of how to make it work, at least for Amy Bill. Like, even now that you're having the open house, I was thinking it might be a cool idea just to invite families to, I don't know, like 3 Zoom meetings and just kind of talk about PACS and how they can implement it in their home. Because for SFPS, all of our students have devices, which is really nice. So their parents could potentially log in. And I think a lot of them are looking for resources. So it's just figuring out how to help them without
Yeah.
overwhelming teachers.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of things in there. Let me see if I could get it all. so, so just kind of combining what I've heard from Alyssa, Jackie, and Marita. So it really feels like this second one is a really big one. There is too much going on for parents right now. There's no way to add PACS to their plate. So that's a really big one, clearly. There's a lot going on in terms of a lot of information coming at parents having to work as well as teach as well as parent, all in one single day, which is a remarkable idea. And a lot of folks are struggling with that because it's really not possible. Those are 3 different jobs. So really feeling and hearing what you're hearing from teachers via their parents, or what you're hearing directly from parents as well. So with scratching the virtual piece into also just distance learning overall, whether it's virtual or with packets, there are still ways to kind of bring PACS in to the household. I think that you're absolutely right. Your teachers are overwhelmed. This is one of the reasons we combined these 2 parts of the rubric that were once, interviews plus Zoom calls. Now it's interviews and Zoom calls. And hopefully you guys are doing the best that you can to have some time with these teachers. And as much as you possibly can, if they're resistant to the fact that you're like the PACS partner, or you want to really push for these answers, and I'm hoping a large part of this PowerPoint will help with how to respond to that. Just really look at this with the viewpoint of, I am just creating rapport with these teachers. Everybody right now needs support. I am reaching out to have just a dialogue with them about how things are going, what's going on. Is there any way I can support them right now? What are they doing in their classrooms? Can I just hear what's happening? And then if there's a way to bring PACS in, do that. So these are really guiding questions, but the super most important intention of this whole idea of these implementation feedback planning questions is for you to have some connection with your teachers. That's the main and most important point of this. And these questions are just there to help you guide the conversation of connecting. But more importantly, it's about connecting. What's going on for them? How can you support? PACS, no PACS, whatever it is. You guys are all professionals. You think about what else was said. Yeah, they might be giving you lip service. They don't really care. I think that there's a real difficulty right now, because not only are we in our, I think a month and a half or maybe a little bit more of virtual learning. Is it a month and a half? I think it's about that. So we're approaching the second full month of this kind of strange different learning. And not only is it a strange different learning, but they're not really able to leave their houses very much and interact with their peers. Same with parents, like anybody. So we're in a real strange time. And then you add that to the end of the school year, which people lose motivation anyway. So motivation is just plummeting downhill right now. And
Michelle, that's what I was going to say, is I feel like, as great, and some of my teachers have tried like virtual visions and have really, or been doing online tutors, which has been really great. But we went from like, we don't want to overwhelm them because there were so much being asked of them and they were overwhelmed, and just trying to make those connections with their students. And then this week, I feel like everybody's kind of hit their groove, they've hit their routine, and now their motivation is they're like counting down days. Like, I can't wait to be done. And you want me to plan for summer or fall when we don't even know what's going on?
Yeah. Right. And we're, and the thing about it is, going back to, responding to resistance, that coming alongside piece can go a real long way right now. We're with you, we're totally with you. We have no idea what's going to happen in the fall. Summer is still a mystery, and yet we're expected to plan for this right now, knowing that it can all just go awry and our efforts are silly. And here we are trying to also finish a school year in 3 weeks. So,
well, and I just did the thing, and I don't think this is one of the motivational strategies, but I just resent the email reminding them and said, listen, you're helping Rita and I out. Like, you might not want to do this, but you're going to help us because we're kind of required to do this.
Oh, no.
Well, I think a lot of times people are like, well, I have the good intention of doing that, but I don't want to do it. But hey, if I'm going to help you out, I'll
do it. Yeah, right.
I was
Because they care
like,
about
make
you.
an adult connection. A lot of you are stuck at home with your kids or your partner,
Right.
or your team, and you don't see Rita and I. So I'm like, if you're lonely for adult connection, reach out.
Right. And that's really, again, just going back to that, you're so absolutely right, Jen. It's just really about that. The whole purpose of this, yes, we gave you questions, but the real whole purpose of this is like, you're alone in your home. I'm a professional. You're a professional. Let's create a meaningful professional adult connection, where it feels supportive and nice and nurturing and very PAX, so again, just making that the ultimate priority in this, what could feel like a real challenging request for your teachers right now. Gosh, thank you everyone for your participation. It's super helpful to hear what's going on. And I think also for our point of view, where we stand, we're always here and willing and able to work with you guys. Some of you have been partners with us for many years. Some of you are brand new, but we're so willing to hear what's going on, what's going to work, how do we support you, while also meeting the requirements of our grant, which we have to do in order to keep it going and keep supporting you, but always wanting to know how we can make things more easeful and what's going on in your worlds that we can help make you do your job in a good way. Okay, I'm going to jump into some motivational interviewing here. So this is our Bugs Bunny saying no, like you might hear from your teachers when requesting these interviews. So looking at those responses from your teachers, let's look at ORs and how you might respond to that. So again, the open-ended question, what makes you feel these strategies won't work in the short time that we have online virtually or in the packets, or in a phone conversation? How could a PAC strategy really make a difference for your parents and students right now? So really changing that up and really thinking about, oh, you don't think it'll help your parents, but it might. If you do the vision at home, wouldn't that be something really amazing for your parents possibly? Then affirming, I hear how hard you are working to engage your students in learning and maintaining your relationship with them. I think that we can all say most of our teachers, if not all of them, are really trying to do this. They are trying to engage their students in learning. They are trying to maintain those relationships towards the end of this very strange school year. And then I could really tell that you really want to make virtual or distance learning or packet learning really fun and meaningful. And then offering reflections. You're really frustrated by how things are going and you're wondering when it will change. And that really taps into the ambiguity of our situation right now. You're overloaded by so much information while incorporating a new way of teaching. And then we have summarizing, which again brings that sustain talk with that change talk. So let me make sure I understand all of the big ideas so far. You're feeling pretty overwhelmed by all the chaos and uncertainty happening in the world right now. And taking on one more thing, it feels like too much. At the same time, part of you knows that PACS would really help your students and yourself during this time. So trying to engage your teachers in this way when they're saying, no, I don't want to talk to you about this, that the affirmations and reflections would be really, really great right here. It's like, yeah, your parents are overwhelmed. You're overwhelmed, hearing that feeling piece, noticing what they're saying and really saying, yeah, you're absolutely right. This is crazy. We're learning a new way of teaching, and you really want to engage with your students and you can't in the same ways. So what is this about? And then to really bring in those open-ended questions to have them thinking, now that you're on their side, what could they be working on right now? What could make a difference for them in that hardship? What could make a difference for their parents? What could make a difference for their students? How could they make something really work for them in that short period of time or in the packets that they're sending home? Any questions about that? So then paying attention to the change talk, and I really love this little cute cartoon about going from I won't do it to yes, I did it. And I think that we can, with some time and this technique, can really get teachers to that yes, I did it place. So the darn C, again, paying attention to the change talk. So listening out for when your teachers in this process say something like, something really needs to change, or I'm hoping that we get back to school by August. Or I want to use PACS with my kids virtually or in a distance way, but I don't know how, or, whatever that the rest of that statement is doesn't matter, because there's change talk in the beginning of this statement. I really want to do this, and I can't find the way, but I really want to. Ability. So I can try a virtual Granny's Wacky Prize, or I could send home Granny's Wacky Prizes to my parents. These kind of ability pieces of what can they do. I can talk to my parents about PACS. I could send them an email about PACS. Reasons and benefits of change. If I do the vision virtually, they may know what to do so that I could get to content. If I have my parents do the vision, then they might be better behaved at home. Need and problems with the status quo. I don't think the students are learning very much right now with all the distractions. So there's that need for you wanting them to learn. The teacher really wants them to learn right now, but there's all these distractions. That's the status quo. That's the problem with the status quo. Something needs to change. I don't think there is much I could do as long as we are virtually teaching. So there's the status quo, again, virtual teaching. This is a big problem right here. And there needs to be something that happens that could be different so that they can learn. And then finding that commitment piece, and this is really linked to the ability. So if they say I could try a virtual Granny's Wacky Prize, get them to commit to that. I will do that on my next call. Or I can talk to my parents about PACS. I will do that by next week when I talk to all my parents. So I will share how to do a kernel with my parents as a commitment piece, or I will use at least one kernel per call. And if you're just having phone calls with your students and sending packets home, one kernel could be a tootle being sent home in a packet, or reading a tootle on that phone call. Or providing 30 seconds for laughter, that Granny's Wacky Prize via that call, or putting a Granny's Wacky Prize instruction in between all the sheets of paper in your packet, and having them do that and break it up. There's lots of ideas and ways to do that. So I'm going to pause there and check the time, because sometimes I cannot get through this presentation because it's so long. Any questions about that so far? Cool. I might be able to get through it. We'll see where we go. So a lot of this is going to be super repetitive, but the next question is about how will these strategies really benefit my students and my teaching, virtually or distance learning, or with parents, or returning to the classroom. And some teacher responses would say it won't benefit them right now. It's just too chaotic. Some might say parents have too much on their plate. Again, really similar conversation. This won't benefit them. So they're really not paying attention to the benefits piece. My classroom and teaching style is fine. Why do I need any new strategies? So a lot of this might come across as super repetitive. Again, we're going to look at ORs. Open-ended question, what makes you feel these strategies won't work? This gets them talking about what couldn't work. How could a PAC strategy really make a difference right now? That's a similar question to the previous one. Affirmations. I really see how much you care about parents and your students, and you don't want to overload them. I can tell that you are a great teacher that already uses great strategies in your classroom. This one can take you very far because we do have a lot of great teachers out there with great strategies in the classroom, and getting them on PACs is a really hard thing. So really affirming that this is not about their teaching's great. And this is about something other than that. It's about, I'm thinking about Jennifer's principal, Amanda. She always says, what do your kids deserve? And do they deserve this trauma-informed care piece, which it's hard for a teacher to say no to. And then reflecting back, you're frustrated by how things are going, and you're wondering when it will change. You're feeling overloaded, and you have to figure out a new way of teaching during this time too. And there's that summarizing piece. Let me make sure I understand. You're pretty overwhelmed and worried about your students and their parents. At the same time, you want to offer something that helps everyone at this time. I mean, we become teachers because we care about students, right? So really tapping into that and really hearing that in their voice during this really challenging time is so important. I know that a lot of our teachers are super worried about the fact that their students are at home, and they don't know what happens in their home, and it could be some pretty challenging things for our students, which is really different when they come to school 5 days a week, 6 hours every day, to really have that safe, nurturing environment. So the worry level of our teachers can really go up, and therefore, bringing PACs into the home as much as we can via packets, virtual learning, phone calls, text messages, emails, whatever the communication is, it creates that nurturing environment for them that they know happens in school. It's the touchstone. And so even like hearing a harmonica can help them just access that felt sense of the school environment. And getting into the darn C and figuring out where that change talk is for our teachers. I really am looking for something that will help my students right now. I can really try to instruct parents on how to do a Granny's Wacky Prize, and it might bring joy to my students and their families. I'm super creative. I could really figure out a way to do PACs virtually or via packets. If I'm practicing Toodle writing with my students, they can work on vocabulary and create more positivity in each other's lives right now. So there's a reason for practicing that. If I can help my parents focus on PACs now, students will have some sense of consistency, right? So PACs is that consistent piece that can go from the classroom to the home. Needs. Students are at home with their families all day, and I'm unsure of the interactions they're having. I'm worried about them. So there's really a need to change the situation. They're really worried about their students, and you want to help them figure out how they can change that worry just a little bit. And then, of course, my favorite commitment, I will try to use at least one kernel per call. I will try to use one kernel in my packets that I send home on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis, however often that's happening, with virtual calls, phone calls, emails. I will try to use at least one kernel. We're coming up against time, so I'm gonna kind of go real fast here on responding to resistance. And of course, this PowerPoint is absolutely available to everyone via the partner materials folder, so you can look at this more closely in your own time. So again, really simply reflecting. It is really chaotic, and you're not sure how PACS will benefit your students right now. It's the same language that you heard in that response to this question. And then you're adding that emphasis of feeling, wow, it is really crazy right now. There's no way to also do PACS. That's that amplified reflection. That double-sided reflection is that feels like a lot, but you want to do something to help your students. Reframing. What if PACS with parents or virtually or in packets really decreases those feelings of chaos? Again, agreeing with a twist, reflecting, affirming, and reframing all in one. Emphasizing that choice, whatever feels right for you. This is a big one right now. You're creating a time and space for you to talk to your teachers via these interviews, but really it's up to them, and you know that. And by saying it's really up to you right now, I'm just here to help, that's enough, and that's huge. Coming alongside, that's really identifying that feeling of chaos. I feel the chaos too. I'm with you in it. And then focusing on student perspectives, I think, is really important. If we can get the teacher to sit in the student's seat, like they're at home all day, they have the sibling that's really hard on them, they have parents that are working the whole day, what would they want? What could they really, really get connected to? Would it be a Toodle? Would it be a Granny's Wacky Prize? Could it be a vision? A leader conversation, lots of options there. Have the teacher sit in that student perspective. So I'm going to breeze through the other two questions because there's a lot of repetition, and kind of get to see what else there is. So these are really addressing the barriers question of that. And again, my favorite one is that trying to get teachers to just say, I'll commit to 1 kernel per interaction. Really hearing how students care about their students, or how teachers care about their students, will be a really big piece that probably happens in your phone calls at this point, even if motivation is really down. I'm hoping that still shines through from your teacher's conversation. And I think a big piece is really knowing what is possible for them. More responses to change. They might not know where to start or how to start. So really, saying it's really hard to know where to start, and putting it off sounds really great. After all, we only have 3 weeks of school left. And it's completely up to you how or where to start. But what do you think your students might really like? I want to point out the confidence rulers. Again, you might hear a commitment piece, you might hear an ability piece from your teachers about what they can do during this time, and you really want to get a sense of how committed they are to that. On a scale of 1 to 10, are they likely to do it? And if not, how do we get them more likely to do it? If they're at, a 5, how do we get them to a 6? And what are the pieces that can get them into really committing? More about those barriers. Make sure we have time, so I'm going to just go quickly here to my last slide. So I think the biggest thing that I really want everyone to leave this this presentation with is the big pieces of MI, or motivational interviewing, and that includes that we resist that writing reflex. But I know that PACS works. I know that if you just did this, you could get it. And if we could just hold back on that, because we know we're all PACS partners, we've drank the Kool-Aid, we know it works, and here are ways that it could work in this even very strange situation, and even possibly be more important than ever in this strange situation. If we can resist the ability to say, yes, this is it, you got to do it, and really hear from our teachers and find the gems in their statements, to listen for their strengths and their values and their good intentions. And then, of course, the biggest piece, the motivational interviewing spirit, is that if you get a teacher to really believe that you accept and understand them in a genuine and authentic way, you have created a setting for them to move in a positive direction. Okay.